There's a town on the shore of Lake Huron where the water runs so clear you can watch the sandy bottom fall away at 20 feet, one shade of blue folding into the next. A lighthouse stands out on the point. The sunset lasts the better part of an hour because up there the horizon has nowhere to hide, and the typical home in that town sells for about $140,000 on a coast. In America, we'll get to that town, we promise. But almost nobody is looking in the right place. While half the country fights over an ocean they will never afford, the biggest, cleanest coastline in America is sitting up north, quiet, mostly empty, at a fraction of the price. Fresh water you can drink. Sand beaches and dunes tall as buildings. Lighthouses and working harbors and thousand-foot freighters. Real towns with real homes for sale right now. So we went and looked. Every town on this list had to pass 3 tests: real shoreline, real prices far below the ocean, and a real town where real people actually live and work. We are giving you one honest catch every single time, because up here, the catch is usually the very thing that keeps it cheap. This is not ocean mansions for pennies. It is a freshwater coast at inland prices, and it is real. Prices move fast up here, so treat every number as a starting point and walk the home yourself before you buy. Let's count them down. Number 15, Ashtabula County, Ohio. Start on the shore of Lake Erie in the far northeast corner of Ohio, where the beaches warm up early and the countryside behind them rolls out into grapevines and old covered bridges. Ashtabula County has more historic covered bridges than almost anywhere in the country, including the Smolin Gulf Bridge, the longest covered bridge in the United States. You could spend the morning on a quiet Lake Erie beach, in the afternoon tasting wine at a vineyard that has been in the same family for 100 years. Here is the wow. Lake Erie is the shallowest of the 5 Great Lakes, which means it warms up fastest, so the swimming season here actually feels like a beach vacation instead of a polar plunge. Now, the numbers. This is one of the more affordable stretches of the whole system. You will find solid homes a few blocks back from the water listed well under $200,000 and true lakefront that would cost you 7 figures on the Atlantic, sitting at a small fraction of that. Compare that to any warm ocean beach town, and it stops being funny. The honest catch. Most of the cheapest listings here are near water, not on the water. So read the fine print on frontage before you fall in love. Lake Erie throws algae blooms in the warm shallows some late summers, and winter brings lake-effect snow. But if you want the warmest, sandiest, cheapest front door to this entire coast, this is it, and it only gets better from here. Number 14, Dunkirk, New York. Stay on Lake Erie and drive east into New York, into grape country, so famous the whole belt runs on Concord grapes, the ones in the jelly you grew up with. Dunkirk sits right on the lake with a historic lighthouse guarding the harbor, long orange sunsets that seem to melt into the water, and a small walkable downtown that time mostly left alone. The wow here is the light itself. The Dunkirk Lighthouse has stood watch since the 1800s, guided ships through some of the worst storms on the lake, and still watches over one of the great sunset stretches on the Great Lakes. On price, Dunkirk has shown up on national lists of the most affordable lake towns in America for a reason. You are looking at median home prices that would barely cover a down payment in a coastal ocean town, with real houses near the water within reach of an ordinary retirement budget. The catch is the one that made it cheap in the first place. This is old industrial New York, and the factory jobs that built these towns thinned out decades ago. The economy is quieter now. This is also the snow belt, so winter means shoveling, and plenty of it. But you would be buying into a lakefront lighthouse town for the price of a fixer 3 hours inland, and the value only climbs as we head north. Number 13. Erie, Pennsylvania. Here is a fact that surprises almost everyone. Pennsylvania has a seashore. It is called Presque Isle, a 7-mile curl of sand that reaches out into Lake Erie like a hook, and it holds 11 separate beaches of soft real sand. You can stand out on that peninsula, look at open water to the horizon, feel the wind, and your eyes will swear you are standing on the ocean. The wow. Presque Isle is the single most visited destination in the entire state of Pennsylvania, pulling in around 4 million people a year, and it costs nothing to walk onto that sand. Erie, the city, wraps around the bay behind it, and it is genuinely affordable. You can buy a whole house here in the low to mid 200s, some well under, in a real city with hospitals, a university, and an actual working harbor, minutes from a beach people drive half a day to reach. And now, the catch you knew was coming. Erie is one of the snowiest cities in America. Lake effect snow rolls in off the water and buries this town under 100 inches or more in a hard winter. That is the deal up here, plain and simple. The same water that gives you that beach gives you that snow. But locals will tell you the summers on the peninsula are worth every single shovelful, and the water only gets clearer from here. Number 12, Sheboygan, Wisconsin. Cross over to Lake Michigan to a town that calls itself the Malibu of the Midwest. And no, that is not a joke somebody made up. Sheboygan, Wisconsin has a genuine freshwater surf scene. When the wind sets up right off the lake, real head-high waves roll into the breakwall and people paddle out in wetsuits to surf a lake in the middle of the country. Behind them sits a candy-striped lighthouse and a harbor lined with old fishing sheds turned into shops and cafes. Your wow fact for the road. Sheboygan is also known as the bratwurst capital of the world, which means you can surf Lake Michigan in the morning and eat like a king for pocket change by lunch. On price, this is Lake Michigan waterfront living in the low couple hundred thousands for near-water homes in a real working town, versus the millions those same lake views command an hour or two north in the resort belt. The catch. True lakefront in Cheboygan is where the money still lives, so the real bargains are the homes a few streets back from the sand, not the ones on it. And this is Wisconsin. So winter is not a rumor. The lake ices over at the edges and the wind comes straight off the water. But half the year here is flat out glorious, and we are just getting to the wild country. Number 11. Escanaba, Michigan. Now we cross the bridge into the Upper Peninsula, and everything changes. The land gets bigger, emptier, and quieter. Escanaba sits on a protected arm of Lake Michigan called Little Bay de Noc, with long sand beaches, the Sandpoint Lighthouse right in town, and skies so dark at night that the Milky Way spills across the water. Young Ernest Hemingway fished this country, and it still looks the way he wrote it down. The wow. Out here, the light pollution basically vanishes, and on a clear, cold night, the northern lights turn the whole surface of the bay green and pink, and moving. People fly to Iceland to see what shows up here for free. Price is where the UP starts to feel unreal. Full homes in the low 200s, plenty under near real beaches in a town with a hospital, and a downtown. On the Great Lakes, the honest catch is the honest catch of the whole Upper Peninsula. The winters are long and dark and heavy with snow, and you are a good drive from any big city. This is remote living. But that remoteness is exactly why the water is this clean and the price is this low. Quick word before we keep going. Everything we keep pointing out, those are the exact catches we dig out of county records every week. And we have put every single one of them into a set of guides called Frank's Land Report Cheap Living Collection. There is one on the 50 catches hidden in cheap land listings, and that is the one for exactly what we are doing today, plus one on the 40 catches hidden in cheap houses, and a state-by-state notebook on where it is actually still cheap and what to ask. They are a few dollars each, instant download, and they are linked right in the description below. If you are serious about buying near the water without getting burned, grab the house guide. Now, back to it. Number 10. Manistique, Michigan, still in the Upper Peninsula, still on Lake Michigan, but this one hides a secret nearly everyone drives right past on the highway. Just outside Manistique sits Kitchity, the big spring, a pool of water so clear and so blue it does not look like it belongs on this planet. 10,000 gallons a minute bubble up through the sand from 40 feet down, and you can see every fallen log and trout and ripple on the bottom, as if the water were a sheet of glass laid over the sand. In town, a lighthouse sits at the end of a long boardwalk that runs right out over the harbor. The Wow. Kitchity is the largest freshwater spring in Michigan, and the water is so clear that a self-guided raft floats you out over the middle to stare straight down into the blue. On price, Manistee is one of the cheaper towns on this whole list. You can find real homes here starting in the low 100s, some near the water, in a small town sitting on one of the Great Lakes. The catch. This is deep Upper Peninsula country, so the winters are serious, and the local economy runs on the seasons. Many of the cheapest homes are in town, a walk or a short drive from the shore, not sitting directly on it. But you would be living minutes from water clearer than most tropical islands, at a price that honestly sounds like a typo. Number 9. Manistee, Michigan. Back down below the bridge now to the warmer, sandier side of Lake Michigan, and to a town that looks like a movie set somebody forgot to strike. Manistee is a Victorian port town, block after block of ornate old buildings from its lumber baron days, with a river walk that runs straight out to a white beach in a pier light standing in Lake Michigan. There is an old car ferry, the city of Milwaukee, tied up as a museum, and dunes and cherry orchards all around the edges of town. The wow fact. This whole stretch of Lake Michigan shoreline holds the largest freshwater dune system on the planet. Mountains of pure sand you can climb and then run straight down into the water. Price-wise, Manistee gives you that gorgeous, warmer Lake Michigan coast in the mid-100s to low 200s for near-water homes. A genuine bargain on a shoreline where the fancy resort towns just up the road run well into the millions. The catch. You are close to that pricey resort belt, so true beachfront still carries a real premium here. And winter is winter, with snow and gray skies. But this is one of the prettiest, warmest feeling towns on the whole list, and the water is about to get spectacular. Number 8. Munising, Michigan. Now brace yourself, because this is where the Great Lakes stop looking like lakes and start looking like the Caribbean got lost and drifted north. Munising, back up in the Upper Peninsula, is the gateway to pictured rocks, 40 miles of sandstone cliffs streaked in mineral reds and golds and greens, rising straight up out of water, so clear and turquoise that the tour boats look like they are hovering in midair. There are sea caves you can paddle a kayak into. There are waterfalls that pour right off the top of the cliffs and fall straight into the lake. On a calm, bright day, the color of that water will stop you cold in your tracks. The wow. Pictured Rocks was the very first national lakeshore ever designated in the United States, and the shipwrecks resting in the shallows here are so well preserved in the cold, clear water that you can look down and see them whole from a glass-bottom boat. On price, homes in and around Munising land in the mid-100s to low 200s in a small town wrapped around some of the most beautiful freshwater on earth. The catch. This is a tourist town, so it lives and dies by the summer season, and true frontage right against the park is scarce and mostly spoken for. And the snow here is measured in feet, not inches. But you would wake up minutes from water that people cross oceans to stand beside. If you are finding this useful, if it is opening your eyes to a coast you had written off years ago, do us one small favor and tap that like button. It genuinely helps push this in front of more people who need to see it. Now, let's get to the crown jewels. Number 7. Bayfield, Wisconsin. Out on the tip of a peninsula reaching into Lake Superior sits Bayfield, a tiny town of apple orchards and white sailboats that serves as the doorway to the Apostle Islands. 22 wild islands scattered across the biggest lake in the world. In summer, you sail out to sea caves carved into red sandstone. In a hard winter, when the lake freezes solid enough to walk on, those same caves turn into cathedrals of blue ice, and people trek out across the frozen surface of Lake Superior to stand inside them. The wow. The Apostle Island Sea Caves, frozen over into ice caves, are one of the rarest sights in all of North America, and they only appear in the years cold enough to lock the big lake down tight. Bayfield is the pricier end of our list, a beloved sailing and orchard town, so expect to pay more here, often up into the 300s. That is still a fraction of a comparable ocean island town off Maine or the Carolinas, but we promised you honesty, and this is our splurge pick. The catch. It is seasonal, it is remote, and it is the priciest water we have shown you yet. But some places earn every dollar, and this is one of them. Now we go to the giant itself. Number 6. Superior, Wisconsin. Stand on the shore here and really understand what you are looking at. Lake Superior is the largest freshwater lake on the surface of the earth. It holds around 10% of all the fresh surface water on the entire planet in one single lake. It is so big it makes its own weather, spins up its own storms and fog, and it is so cold and so deep that it almost never gives a sunken ship back. The town of Superior sits at the far western tip of it, sharing a massive working harbor with Duluth across the water, where 1,000-foot freighters slide under a lift bridge loaded down with iron ore and grain. The wow. Just outside town runs Wisconsin Point, the longest freshwater sandbar in the world, a 3-mile ribbon of sand and pine with a lighthouse at the end and hardly another soul on it most days. On price, Superior is a working town through and through. So, it is genuinely affordable. Real homes in the mid-100s, some less than that, in a real city sitting on the greatest freshwater coast on the face of the earth. The catch. This is an industrial port with a hard-working blue-collar past, not a manicured resort, and the winters here rank among the coldest and snowiest anywhere in the lower 48. Even the summers stay cool off that giant cold lake. But you could have your morning coffee watching freighters the length of 3 football fields glide silently by. On a coast you can actually afford. Number 5. Marquette, Michigan. If Superior is the giant, Marquette is its capital. This is the biggest city on the Upper Peninsula's Lake Superior shore, and it might be the one you actually move to, because it has everything you would miss. A university, a good hospital, real restaurants and coffee shops, and then, right at the edge of downtown, Presque Park, where black volcanic cliffs drop straight into water so clear and cold and blue, it looks polished by hand. Locals leap off those black rocks into the lake all summer long. An old iron ore dock stretches far out over the water like a rusted monument to the town's mining days. The wow. The water off Marquette is some of the clearest fresh water in North America. Cold and gin clear. And on a bright, calm day, you can look over the side of a boat and see straight down to the boulders, 40 feet under you. On price, Marquette runs a touch higher than the tiny towns, often in the mid-200s to low 300s, because it is simply the nicest, most livable spot up here. And that is still a fraction of any comparable ocean city with this kind of coastline. The catch, and it is a real one. Marquette gets buried. 200 inches of snow in a season is a normal winter, not a bad one. And Lake Superior stays cold enough that the water is bracing even in the middle of July. That is the price of the clearest water on this list. But you would be living in a real city on a shore this beautiful for the cost of a plain starter home in half the country. Listen, Before our final stretch, everything we have warned you about in this video, the insurance, the winters, the roof, the fine print, it is all laid out in the guides down in the description. 3 of them. The house guide, the land guide, and the state-by-state cheap living notebook, plus a due diligence worksheet pack you print out and carry straight to the county office. Bought separately, they run about $45. Together, it is $29.99, and the worksheet pack is free in the bundle. One bad buy, one uninsurable house, one money pit roof, one home you cannot heat through a lake effect winter. Costs more than that whole collection. That is the difference between a cheap deal and an $80,000 mistake. Link is in the description. Now, our last few. Number 4. Alpena, Michigan. Come back down to Lake Huron, to a town that sits directly on top of one of the great underwater treasures in the entire country. The waters off Alpena hold Thunder Bay National Marine Sanctuary, and over the last 2 centuries, they have swallowed an estimated 200 ships. Storms, fog, fire, and head-on collisions in the dark sent them down, and the cold, fresh water of Lake Huron preserved them almost perfectly where the salt ocean would have eaten them to nothing. Wooden schooners, steel steamers, some rest in water shallow enough to see from above, masts still standing, cargo still in the hold. The wow. Thunder Bay was the first freshwater national marine sanctuary in the entire United States, and researchers have found and mapped roughly 100 of those wrecks so far, with an estimated 100 more still out there waiting in the dark. On price, Alpena is a real affordable Lake Huron town, with homes commonly in the mid-100s to low 200s, near clear water and a real working harbor. The catch. This is Northeast Michigan, so the lake effect snow is real, and the local economy is modest. But you would be living directly on top of a museum the size of a small sea, on a coast most Americans do not even know exists. Number 3. Cheboygan and the Presque shore, Michigan. Follow the Huron coast up toward the very top of the mitten, where Lake Huron meets the Straits of Mackinac, and the shoreline turns into a string of lighthouses. Old Presque Isle Light, New Presque Isle Light. 40 Mile Point. This stretch has one of the highest concentrations of historic lighthouses on the entire Great Lakes, standing guard over water that turns swimming pool blue in the shallows. From up here you can look across and see Mackinac Island and watch freighters thread the narrow straits. The wow. On a clear, dark night in this quiet corner of Michigan, the same northern lights that draw crowds to Iceland show up right over the water, and nobody charges you a dime to watch. On price, the Cheboygan area gives you that lighthouse-studded Huron coast in the mid-100s to low 200s for near-water homes, and it is the gateway to some of the most famous scenery in the whole Midwest. The catch. It is seasonal, it is northern, and the deep winter is long and quiet. Frontage right on the water carries a premium, so the real bargains sit a little back from the shore. But you would be minutes from the straits, and just one town away from the single cheapest waterfront on this entire list. Number 2. Rogers City, Michigan. Here it is, the town from the very beginning of this video, the one we promised we would come back to. Rogers City sits on the Lake Huron shore, along a stretch that locals proudly call the Sunrise Coast, because the sun comes straight up out of the water every morning. It has a marina full of small boats, a lighthouse, long quiet beaches out at Seagull Point, and water clear enough that you can watch the bottom drop away beneath you as you wade out from shore. It is small, under 3,000 people, the kind of town where everything is a short walk from the shore. The wow. Rogers City is home to the largest limestone quarry in the world. A mile-wide man-made canyon carved beside the lake, and that quarry and its port built the whole town. And now the number we promised you at the very start. Realtor.com has named Rogers City the most affordable lake town in America, with a median home price sitting right around $140,000. Not a few blocks back, on the water. A whole town, on a great lake, for less than the down payment on a plain bungalow near the ocean. As of the listings we checked in the summer of 2026, that number still holds, but you owe it to yourself to verify it live before you write a check. The honest catch, because we owe you a straight one here more than anywhere else. At that price, you are looking at smaller homes and some real fixers, and the very cheapest of them sit in town rather than on private frontage. The quarry and the port that built this place are quieter than they once were, and the winter brings real lake-effect snow rolling in off Huron. But that, right there, is the whole point of this video. The snow, the distance, the quiet. That is exactly what keeps a home on a Great Lake at $140,000 while the ocean coasts sell empty air for millions. Which brings us all the way to number one and to the best-kept secret of the entire coast, the part that is not for sale at any price. Number one. The coast that was never for sale. Here is the reframe we have been quietly building toward this whole way down. The very best of this coast does not have a listing price at all, because you already own it. Walk onto the sand at Pictured Rocks or Sleeping Bear Dunes, or any of the dozens of public beaches and national lake shores strung out along these 5 lakes. And there is no gate, no private resort, no $10 million mansion standing between you and the water. It is public, it is protected, it belongs to everyone, and it always will. You can stand on a beach at the very edge of the largest freshwater system on the face of the earth. Watch a 1,000-foot freighter cross the far horizon. Watch the northern lights come up green over the water at midnight, and it costs you nothing but the drive to get there. That is the thing the whole country got wrong. We were all taught that the coast means the ocean, that living on the water is a rich person's dream, that the sea is the only sea worth wanting. But the biggest, cleanest, most affordable coastline in America has been sitting up north the entire time, with real sand and old lighthouses and clear blue water, with real towns and $140,000 homes, and with the best of it, free and wide open to anyone who bothers to go look. You can afford to live on a coast. It is just up north. Now you know exactly where, and you know the honest catch on every single one, and you know that it is the winter more than anything that has kept this whole coast a secret for so long. One last thing before you go. A quick reminder that none of this is financial, legal, real estate, or insurance advice. Prices, insurance, and conditions change fast up here. So verify every home, check the flood maps, and walk the property yourself before you ever spend a dollar. And if this opened your eyes to a coast you had written off, do 2 things for us. Subscribe, because we go out looking for places exactly like this every single week. And share this with the one person you know who has been dreaming about the water and telling themselves they missed their chance. Because they didn't. It was up north the whole time, waiting